think you know the difference between what's real and what's fantasy, right? I mean, reality has rules. It's predictable. Fantasy, well, that's what happens when you break the rules. But what if I told you the actual rules of our universe are stranger, more mind-bending than anything we could possibly dream up in a story? To really get a grip on just how bizarre things have gotten, we have to go back. We need to understand the old rules. So, let's start with how classic horror stories were first defined, back when the universe seemed like a simple, orderly, and, predictable place. Way back in 1927, the absolute master of horror, H.P. Lovecraft, he really nailed it. He said true horror isn't just a ghost or a monster. No. It's when a story takes the fundamental, fixed laws of nature and just shatters them. The real terror, he argued, comes from seeing cosmic order itself just completely fall apart. Now, Lovecraft's whole idea of breaking the rules only works if you believe the universe is basically a giant, predictable machine. And for centuries, that's exactly what we thought. This was the Newtonian view, a clockwork universe. The idea was that if you knew where every single piece was at the start, you could predict the future with perfect 100% accuracy. Every cause had a clear logical effect. Simple. But here's the crazy part. Just as Lovecraft was defining fantastic horror based on these old, reliable rules, science was in the middle of a massive revolution. A revolution that was about to blow that perfect little clockwork universe to absolute pieces. This timeline really puts it into perspective. So you've got Newton in the late 1600s, setting the stage with his clockwork model. But then, look at this. More than a full decade before Lovecraft even published his essay, Albert Einstein had already turned our entire understanding of space and time on its head. The fixed laws Lovecraft was using as his foundation? Yeah, they were already cracking. Einstein's theories of relativity showed us something mind-blowing, that time and space aren't these rigid, universal things we thought they were. They're flexible. They're malleable. Time can literally speed up or slow down, and space itself can bend and warp. It all depends on how fast you're moving and how close you are to a massive object. All of a sudden, the universe didn't have one single reliable clock anymore. And if you thought that was weird, the rabbit hole goes so much deeper. If relativity put a crack in the clockwork universe, the new science of quantum mechanics suggested it wasn't a clock at all. It was more like a casino. Even Einstein himself was really, really uncomfortable with where all this was heading. The randomness, the probability that was at the absolute heart of quantum mechanics, it just felt wrong to him. He was convinced there had to be some deeper, predictable order we just hadn't found yet. He famously pushed back with this line right here. And this was the crucial turning point. Because a whole new generation of physicists came along, and through one experiment after another, they discovered something truly startling. At the smallest, most fundamental scales of reality, it really, really seems like God is playing dice. The brilliant physicist Richard Feynman explained it perfectly. He said that at the subatomic level, certainty just goes right out the window. Sure, we can predict the average behavior of millions of particles, but if you look at any single one, we can only talk about probabilities. We simply cannot know for sure what it's going to do next. The universe, at its very core, is fundamentally uncertain. And that's what quantum mechanics is. It's the new rule book for reality. It's the physics of the very, very small. And its laws are all based on chance and possibility, not the predictable A plus B equals C world of Isaac Newton. Okay, so the universe is random. That's weird enough, I'll give you that. But this next part, this is where reality truly starts to sound like something out of a fantasy novel. It turns out that the simple act of looking at something actually changes it. This all comes from Heisenberg's famous uncertainty principle, and it makes sense when you think about it. How do you see a tiny particle? Well, you have to bounce something off of it, right? Like a photon of light. But that very act of measurement, that little photon smacking into the particle, gives it a nudge. It changes its speed and direction. So you have a trade-off. The more you know about its exact location, the less you can possibly know about where it's headed, and vice versa. And this is the absolute key takeaway here. We are not just passive observers of some external, objective reality. The act of measuring, the simple act of looking, is part of the system itself. Our interaction with the quantum world fundamentally changes the very thing we are looking at. And it gets even weirder. Before we measure it, a particle isn't in any one specific place. It exists in this hazy cloud of possibilities, what physicists call a superposition. It's potentially here and there and everywhere else it could be, all at the exact same time. It's the idea behind Schrödinger's cat, right? Until you open the box, the cat is both alive and dead. It's our act of looking that forces the universe to, well, pick one and collapse all those maybes into a single concrete reality. Okay, so let's bring this all back home. If this is what our actual physical reality is like, what on earth does that do to our old ideas about what makes a story fantastic or unnatural? Let's just recap the new rules of reality, shall we? Time and space are flexible. The future is just a web of probabilities, not a certainty. Our own active observation helps shape what is real. And things can literally be in multiple places at once. I mean, if you read that in a fantasy novel, you'd call it magic. But this is modern physics. And this is the real kicker. Lovecraft's entire definition of horror, his whole foundation, was based on the idea of breaking the fixed laws of nature. But 20th century science came along and showed us that those laws were never as fixed as we thought. The very basis for classical horror has been completely eroded by our modern understanding of the universe. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. When science itself tells us that there's an invisible reality of infinite possibilities all around us, and that our own consciousness helps shape it just by looking, where exactly is the line between science fact and science fiction anymore? Does it even exist?